Welcome to the 700 Club. Israel is on high alert after a top Hamas leader was assassinated in a powerful explosion in Beirut yesterday. That strike could lead to an all-out war along the border with Lebanon.
Well, Palestinians are calling for revenge, and one analyst says the attack is a potential flashpoint in the war between Israel and Hamas. CBN's Julie Stahl brings us the story from Jerusalem.
Israel has not taken responsibility for the death of Hamas deputy leader Saleh Aruri, who was killed with at least 5 other people in an explosion in a southern suburb of the Lebanese capital, Beirut, on Tuesday. Lebanese state-run national news agency blamed the explosion on an alleged Israeli drone strike. Israeli officials declined to comment on what was described on Israeli television as the most dramatic assassination in years. Aruri was one of the founders of Hamas's military wing, the Izz-ad-Din al-Qassam's brigades. He had been operating out of Lebanon as a guest of Hezbollah. The IDF spokesman didn't mention the assassination, but said Israel's battle is against Hamas.
The IDF is in a very high state of readiness in all arenas, in defense and offense. We are highly prepared for any scenario. The most important thing to say tonight is that we are focused and remain focused on fighting Hamas.
Meanwhile, in Ramallah, in the West Bank, Palestinians took to the streets protesting the death of Aruri, demanding revenge and calling on Hezbollah to take action. Former Israeli intelligence officer and analyst Avi Melamed wrote that the attack does present a moment of shame for Hezbollah and a potential flashpoint in the war between Israel and Hamas. Hezbollah is known to have a far more extensive tunnel network than Hamas and has more missiles which can reach all of Israel. On a visit to troops in Gaza, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said that without a clear victory, Israel will not be able to live in the Middle East.
We must emerge victorious for 2 reasons. First, in order to exact a price and to ensure that anyone living near the Gaza Strip may do so safely. In addition, a scenario in which 1,500 people are killed or taken hostage must end with clear-cut deterrence and victory. Otherwise, we cannot live in the Middle East. As such, we are determined to achieve our goals.
On the international front, Israel will defend itself against charges of genocide against Palestinians in Gaza at a hearing set for next week in a case that could be a landmark in international law. Another senior Hamas leader, Ismail Haniyeh, is praising South Africa for filing the complaint against Israel with the International Court of Justice.
I applaud all the positions of support, and especially here the state of South Africa, which filed a complaint with the International Court of Justice against the occupying state for its crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing and genocide. And we appreciate the political and legal importance of this lawsuit.
South Africa charged that Israel is violating the 1948 United Nations Convention Against Genocide.
While the Hamas rapist regime does everything to maximize civilian casualties with its despicable human shield strategy, Israel is employing measures unprecedented in the history of warfare to minimize civilian casualties.
Government spokesman Elon Levy says South Africa is standing on the wrong side and supporting the Nazi-like massacre of Israelis by Hamas.
The state of Israel will appear before the International Court of Justice at The Hague to dispel South Africa's absurd blood libel.
The case could last for years. For now, Israel continues its military operations in Gaza along its northern border and for the return of its hostages. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, once again, this is incredible doublespeak on the part of the international community. To accuse Israel of war crimes here is absolutely absurd. They were the one who were the victim of the attack on October 7th. And we all need to keep in mind there are still hostages, Israeli citizens being held hostage by Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist group. They can't expect to have shelter in any nation. And they're also the government of Gaza. Until that changes, until the hostages are released, Israel has to use any means necessary in order to get them back. The international community should absolutely recognize that. And I hope the Palestinian people start to recognize Hamas is their enemy too. This ideology to wipe Israel off the map, these chants of from the river to the sea, that's the chant for genocide. That's the chant for ethnic cleansing. Well, the attack by Hamas on Israel was only the first phase of a long-term plan by Iran to wipe out the Jewish state. Iranian leaders believe Israel must be eliminated before the return of an Islamic figure known as the Mahdi. Dale Hurd brings us that story.
Iran has been indoctrinating its fighters throughout the Middle East in the belief that Israel is the biggest obstacle to the return of the Mahdi, and that there must be an apocalyptic war that destroys both Israel and Jews around the world. Islamic expert Raymond Ibrahim.
So the Mahdi, as an English speaker would pronounce it, it's really Mahdi, which basically means guided. So he's the guided one, or in Islamic understanding, he's the rightly guided one. And he takes on different guises depending on which sect of Islam you ask, Sunni or Shia.
Sunnis, the majority of the world's Muslims, believe the Mahdi has not yet been born.
The Prophet said, hadith is in Abu Dawood, a man shall come towards the end of times. His name will be my name, and the name of his father will be the name of my father, meaning Muhammad ibn Abdullah.
Shia Islam, which is dominated by Iran, teaches that the Mahdi is already alive and has been hiding for over 1,000 years. Brother Rashid, a former Muslim, hosts a Christian program for Muslims called Daring Questions.
The Shia Muslims, especially the Twelver Shiaism, they believe that he is the 12th Imam, and he was born around 868. So he just disappeared. He's still alive until today. His age is 1155, if you want to. So he's still living somewhere, and one day he will show himself.
Muslims in Iran believe the Mahdi is hiding in this well in the Mosque of Jamkaran. Pilgrims peer down the well with flashlights, leave prayer requests for the Mahdi, and hope he will reappear. Muslims believe that when the Mahdi returns, he will be accompanied by Jesus, known in Islam as the Prophet Isa, to rid the world of evil. Iranian leaders have seized upon belief in the final battle before the Mahdi's return to motivate its military and allies to fight harder to destroy Israel.
And a lot of the Islamic schools or jihadists are being indoctrinated by Iranian propaganda in Mahdiism. And again, it always centers around Israel and attacking and destroying Israel.
Some believe in the next phase of its plan to wipe out Israel, Iran might initiate a multi-front attack through its heavily armed proxy armies in Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq. Ibrahim and Brother Rashid say the doctrine of the Mahdi's return means that any attempts by Israel to make peace with the Muslim world will ultimately prove to be futile.
Israel is a threat to Muslims, to the Mahdi, to the coming of the Mahdi, so they have to be eliminated. There is no other solution.
So I don't think Israel could ever have permanent peace unless Islam were to completely change itself and become not Islam, to be something completely different.
And Ibrahim worries that Iran might be willing to use a nuclear weapon against Israel to ensure the return of the Mahdi. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Please understand the ideology behind the current attacks against Israel, because this ideology runs deep. You go back over 100 years ago, 120 years ago to Sudan. They had a claim. There was a rebel leader that claimed that he was the Mahdi. And they were successful against the Brits. They defeated an army, British army in Khartoum, put the general's head on a stake and put it on the city wall. Their belief system requires Israel to be wiped off the map. And it's being set up that there will be a battle for Jerusalem. And when you come at that kind of prediction from the Islamic side, and match it up to what the Bible says, when the armies gather in the Valley of Megiddo, what they're doing is preparing for a final assault on the city of Jerusalem. So we're seeing it line up. Iran, Turkey, Russia, seemingly aligning right now against Israel. Is this the time of it? No, I don't believe that. I think we aren't right yet in the last days, but we're certainly being set up for it. As Christians, we need to completely understand what the Muslims believe, what is forcing them to do this. And you just heard it from an expert. This won't go away until Islam fundamentally changes and no longer is Islam.